Thanks for watching. Today I'm going to be replacing the fuel pump and inside the tank fuel pump. In this case it's on a Ford F150, but I've done several of these, and on most cars the procedure is pretty much the same. So the first thing I did was disconnect the battery just to make sure there's no power coming down. Fuel pumps usually aren't hot unless the key is on, but just for safety I disconnected the battery. I've already drained the fuel tank. I used a $6 transfer pump from Harbor Freight Tools. The pump itself worked good, and I have another video reviewing the pump. There are a few things that you need to adjust if you're going to use it to take fuel out of a fuel tank. So next up is I'm going to remove that clamp so I can separate the rubber filler hose. And then I'm going to disconnect the wiring harnesses at the pump, and I'll give you a picture of those when I'm getting ready to do it. Alright, so I have the filler hose disconnected from the filler neck, which goes up to the fuel door. Because the filler hose comes up over the frame, it was challenging to get it to disconnect. Couldn't get enough room to pull backwards on it, so just 3 sheet metal screws held the filler neck in behind the filler door housing. So I just disconnected the screws, dropped the filler neck, and pulled the filler neck out from the hose. So now I'll be able to work the hose back up and over the frame when I drop the fuel tank. Alright, so you can see with the fuel lines and the power go to the fuel pump. So what I'm going to need to do is start dropping the tank down a little bit so I can get at those, disconnect them, and then drop the tank down the rest of the way. Tank's held on by 2 straps, one there and then one over here. I'll hit them with the air gun, start loosening them up, get the tank to drop a little bit, and then disconnect the fittings at the pump, get the tank the rest of the way down. The next step is going to be to drop the tank down. I have to disconnect the wiring harness off the fuel pump and sending unit, as well as disconnect the fuel lines. For this particular application, just to make it easier for me to get in there, I took the drive shaft out because it mounts just outside of this side fuel tank on the truck, and it's a tight fit getting your arms in there. So I'm going to put a jack under this to support it and lower it down a little bit, and then be able to disconnect the wiring harness and the fuel lines. You can use a regular 4-jack, a single post 4-jack. I've done it with those before. I mean, doing this on your back is a little bit of a challenge, but it's not too bad. In my case, I have a lift for my motorcycle, so it's going to give me a little bit more stability. But like I said, I have done it with a single post 4-jack before. Sometimes you need a little helper with that one. Anyway, so I'm going to disconnect this and get the tank out. Finish removing the nuts from these mounting straps, and that'll let me get the tank the rest of the way out once I got it supported. As you can see, the fuel tank is out. So here's the fuel sender unit. This unit contains the float that tells you how much fuel's in the tank, sends a signal to your dash. It also contains the fuel pump. This ring right here on the inside is a retaining ring. So what you have to do is just, I hit it with a hammer and a chisel, and chisel it counterclockwise until it opens up in these grooves here, and you can pull it out, and then you can pull the sending unit out. It took me a while because I broke my fuel line removal tool. I got the first fuel line off the fuel pump, and my tool broke when I was working on getting the second one off, so I had to run out and grab another one. But it's off and the tank's out. You probably have some kind of vacuum hose as well that you're going to have to disconnect, as well as the wiring harness. So I'm going to bang this ring off and get the sending unit out. Using a small ball peen hammer and a flat chisel, I was able to turn the retaining ring to the point. You can see here where it's now in the opening, and the retaining ring comes right off, and I can remove the fuel pump assembly. So I got the old fuel pump out, and this was kind of fun. Hopefully you can see it in the shot, but looks like the power wire shorted out inside the tank and it burnt. That's what caused the pump failure. So I'm going to make sure I use some shrink tubing after I put these connectors together on the new pump to help prevent that in the future if the connector should come loose. New fuel pump is attached to the sending unit. Remove some insulation from the wires so I can connect them. So I'll put some shrink tubing on, make the connections, crimp them, bring the shrink tubing over and heat it up so it shrinks for a good fit, and then get this ready to go back in the tank. I took the retaining ring and brought it to the bench grinder to get some of that rust off of the inside, the part that touches the fuel tank. The reason I did that is on a lot of cars this actually is part of what conducts the ground to the circuit, so you want to make sure you have while you got it apart, get the rust off and make sure you get a clean connection there. So any rust at the tank where it meets or on the back of the ring, you want to try to remove some of that so you get a solid ground connection. You see the fuel pumps on the fuel pump assembly, and you can see where I connected the wires and put some shrink tubing over them.
So if you can't tell from the change in light, it is the next day. Unfortunately, I ran out of daylight and ended up finishing putting the fuel tank back into the truck with a small flashlight jammed between my teeth so I could see what I was doing. But I felt like I should complete the video, so you can see the fuel selector is on, set for the front tank. And we have fire. So I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching.